is too weak to lead this country. You know, Biden lost badly when his supporters are saying he should cancel the rest of the debates. Now I understand he's canceling the debates. Let's see what happens. I think that's not going to be a good move for him. I don't think that's going to be a good move. I don't think television with those ratings are never going to let him cancel. You don't know television like that. What are they going to do? You know, someday we're not going to be doing this anymore. What are they going to do without Trump? What are they going to do? Oh, those poor people. Look at all of them. Whoa. That's a lot of...
Now, nobody's talking about canceling debates. That's not what's up for talking. What is being talked about is the debate commission, apparently. So the Presidential Debate Commission, after the debate between Trump and Biden, are trying to make changes to the debate format. Basically, they want to give the moderator an option to mute the candidate's mic. Chris Wallace has expressed regret over this debate, with Donald Trump basically saying that he won it. Trump's response was, at a rally at Duluth, Minnesota last night, Trump said he was happy with the debate, saying an appearance had the highest ratings of any show in the history of television, and said he held Joe Biden accountable for his 47 years of lies, 47 years of betrayal, and 47 years of failure. Now, they may try to change the debate format because of people saying this is the worst presidential debate in the history of presidential debates. Trump was aggressive. Trump didn't let Chris Wallace talk. Trump often didn't let Joe Biden talk. And yeah, he bullied Joe Biden the entire debate. He tried to bully Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace had to raise his voice. Chris Wallace was even shocked that he had to raise his voice. I can't believe I'm having to do this. But you must understand, Donald Trump had a very specific mission when he went into that debate. And I would argue, and I have argued, he's accomplished his mission. Trump won that debate based on what Trump was trying to accomplish in that debate. But the problem is, it's a hollow win. Yes, in the sense of what you wanted to accomplish, Donald Trump. I don't know if Trump watches this channel. Trump should watch this channel. I try to give him a fair shot of any lefty out there, because I actually do need Trump to be potentially out there where he could win. And even though that may be true, I need everybody to understand that he could potentially win, which means I need Trump to actually be a decent opponent in this race, to have any chance of getting anything I want from the standpoint of policy. My point is, Donald Trump fundamentally misunderstands the Democratic Party, and more importantly, the left, in the context of that party. They're two different things, believe it or not. And in his head, I don't think he quite gets it. I'm going to make my argument and make my point. But if Trump wants to be competitive in this election, he needs to think about the Democratic Party and the left differently. And from the standpoint of what he was trying to accomplish in this debate, in his specific sense, yeah, he did. In the larger sense, it's a hollow win. Because in the grand scheme of things, the misunderstanding makes the strategy a failure. I'm going to explain what I mean here, meaning Trump has a specific strategy in this race. And in implementing that strategy, yes, you got what you want. No, it didn't matter, because it didn't necessarily change the events or the context, the way this race is pursuing itself. I'm going to explain what I mean. Hope it makes sense. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. Like I said, the debate commission is saying they want to change the debate format. I'm against that. You guys entered into a debate format. The idea, I would imagine, would be 3 debates. Everybody understood it was going to be 3 debates. You didn't like the way that debate went. One candidate believes he won that debate and said, I don't want you to change the debates. The other candidate, I want you to change the debates. Now, the fact of the matter is the fact that one candidate says, I think I won that. I'm okay with that particular format. How are you going to change the rules of the games in the middle of the game? Just because it disadvantaged one and benefited the other. Now, I understand that the American public might have hated it, but the catch is nothing in that debate is going to give you any real information from the standpoint of material things of your life. Joe Biden lies like a sailor. Donald Trump does the same. And at the end of the day, they're just fighting, 2 old men fighting each other. From the standpoint and the context of the country, in the real terms of a debate, I would love They have two people up there giving their ideas, giving their opinions. This is what I want to do. No, this is what I want to do. And each and every one of those questions are pertinent to the American public because each one gives some kind of context in the way that these guys are going to go and pursue their agendas. Nothing in this debate will do that. It won't. I have a hard time believing that the second or third debate would do either. People are hardened in their points of view on this stuff. And from my point of view, they're not talking about anything that has real material concerns to the domestic public in any real way that is going to be truthful and honest to when they get into their office. So if you're not going to be helpful to me and my people, meaning the American public, at least be entertaining with each other. Now, I don't want the debate formats to change. If this was the agreement that they went along with, you can't change it now that one of the candidates, Joe Biden, is being disadvantaged. I agree with Trump. Going beyond that point, Donald Trump had a specific plan in this debate. And I know mainstream media is looking at this like, oh my God, this is a clusterfuck. But mainstream media needs to look a little bit closer. And Donald Trump has a strategy. Now, one or two things is true. Either Donald Trump actually believes that Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders. And this has been the attack from the right wing constantly. Look at Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz put this out. Hope you can see it. Biden may be the Democratic nominee, but look who's driving. AOC, Elizabeth Warren, there's Bernie Sanders. They think Bernie Sanders is driving the car. Now, either you believe that or you're using that as a political hit point. The fact of the matter is, though, I think on some level, Trump does believe this. And the reason why I say I think Trump does believe this, because Trump, in this debate, had a very specific strategy of getting Joe Biden to repudiate his base. While in the entirety of that debate, even when they said, do you condemn white supremacists? Even then he wouldn't do it. Like he refused to repudiate. It's like something is in him that says, no, I am going to win or lose with the people who back me. And even though that doesn't result in real material concerns for those people, from the standpoint of ideology and from the standpoint of the things that they care about, he backs it. Orally, he backs it. So when it comes down to law and order and policing, he's going to be the law and order guy. He's going to be the police guy. When it comes down to military or whatnot, I help the troops. I maintain the troops. You let the troops go. All of those people were dying because of you, Joe Biden. Who? Name one police force that backs you. I mean, this was the level of attack. He was very clear in regards to what he represented. And he wanted Joe Biden, instead of representing those things in the way that Trump was representing those things, he wanted Joe Biden to condemn and repudiate. The very people that Joe Biden would need to get elected, he wanted Joe Biden over and over and over again to repudiate the very people that Joe Biden need to get elected. And Joe Biden, willingly, no issue doing it, did so. Whether it was defund the police, bam. Whether it was Green New Deal, no, I don't back that. Whether it was Medicare for all, I don't back that. Whether it didn't matter what it was. Trump hit him on items that Trump himself, in the exact same position, would defend wholeheartedly because Trump believed he needed those people to get elected. Biden had no such qualms. Now the catch becomes, yes, Trump, you were a success in that. For example, look at this right here. There are ways, believe it or not, to say this. If your name is Joe Biden, what you don't want to do is attack the people who you need to vote for you. Those people are already holding their nose. Those people are already scrubbing themselves, crying, making that vote for you. Not liking you, believing that basically they're just doing it to keep the other guy out of office. Meaning any notion of democracy, any notion of representative government, out the window. Joe Biden, a vote for it, is a destruction of democracy when you have 70, 80% of people nearly backing a guy because he's not the other guy. There is no compunction at all to even make the argument that you should get our vote and support these interests. You have 88% supporting Medicare for all. And Joe Biden just recently said, look, I won the primary, so clearly people are on board for me. Meaning those people are not going to repudiate me because I got through the primary. Clearly they backed me. A percentage of those people backed you. A percentage backed Sanders. And ideally, you would also need those people who backed Sanders who didn't vote for you in the primary to actually vote for you in order to get elected. So he assumes their votes. He assumes their votes because he knows that those people are terrified of Trump. So whether they were voting for Sanders or not, whatever policy agenda that they had or not, doesn't matter. So yeah, you can have 88% of Democrats backing Medicare for all in the midst of a pandemic with 70% of the public backing it, and Obamacare under threat, most likely going to be ended when the Supreme Court pick gets in. But yeah, you don't have to back Medicare for all. Screw it. You don't even have him backing a public option at this point. And the left, radicals, to the tune of 70-80% are still going to back him. African Americans, to the tune of 80 something, 90%, will still back him. Not for anything that he's done, not for anything that he's going to do, but entirely because of who he is not, out of cowardice. It's purely out of cowardice. Call it what it is. How is that a democracy? You're basically a hostage, or it's a hostage scenario. The United States says it doesn't negotiate with hostages, and yet you have a large part of the population that damn sure is willing to. You have a gun to your head in a hostage situation. I'm making the point to you that that is not a democracy. That is not a representative government. It is a responsibility of the public to enforce, to hold accountable their political leaders. And this nonsense, where you fell into a goddamn scam, where neither party even considers the interests of the public. Consider what is happening for the moment. They have a government that's going to be shut down again in December, because they can't fund it. You have people, 30 million people or more, out of a job. And your government basically says, yeah, we're still far apart in regards to what we need to do to get the public. Is that a rational government or not? Go back and look at what FDR did. FDR was very concerned that this country would fall to the socialists and to the communists if it continued the way it went. Why was he concerned? Because he was alive during the Russian Revolution and he saw this shit happen. Fear, this notion that the public can assert itself, compelled him to act. In our situation, you have a flip, meaning instead of a government responding to the needs of the population because that government thought that government could implode, you had a situation where the public now is so terrified of the monster and the maniac that's in government that it capitulates. It doesn't really matter what the other person does. It doesn't really matter what the other person represented. It doesn't really matter that the fact that these guys lying about civil rights, or that the guy put into law and personality of that law that created the Floyd issue, the Blake issue, or for that matter, the Ferguson issue. It doesn't matter that it was under Obama where Black Lives Matter started and all of this stuff was taking place, even under Obama. Nope, doesn't matter. Got to get Trump out. Nothing else matters. I don't care what Biden is for. I'm saying I don't care if Satan himself is on the other side of that dispatch box. It is the responsibility of the public to get their leaders to come to them, not the other way around. And because we've ended up in this spot, a vote for Joe Biden is not a democratic system, especially when you have basically a hostage situation. A vote for Joe Biden is basically just as bad as a vote for Trump, especially if you're doing so because you are basically feel compelled to. It's one thing if you're one of these libs like Bill Maher, you place that vote, you have no issue with placing that vote. Your life is relatively great. You're going to make sure you have health care, you're going to have education, and all that stuff. Your world is great. If you're one of these other libs who are out here, maybe some of the software engineers I've met, who are like, yeah, I back Biden, because basically their life is on point. Well, that's an easy vote. That's a privileged vote. I'm talking about the vote for people whose life is not on point and whose life will not be made whole by Joe Biden being in that office. The people who stop voting because basically they said it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help my material interests. I'm talking about those people. You understand that the left accepting these people like this, not holding political leaders accountable, allows for the poverty to continue, allows for the people to continue to live on the streets, allows for the programs where people can't get their medication or their insulin and everything else. The left allows this, which is why I spend my time kicking the left. Because at the end of the day, if you ever got to the point where you made a demand, power concedes nothing without a demand. And instead of the left demanding anything, it capitulates. Head down, ass up, cheeks open. You don't believe me? When Sanders capitulated, what did the left do? All of these organizations. You win the policy argument, and you still don't have the guts, the courage, the political instincts, even the strategy itself to scream, this is what we want, this is our demand. And for those lefties that are in the party itself, these progressive Democrats, they should have said the same. Those guys are right. No, we're not leaving you. We're battered spouses, but we're saying those guys are right. And we're saying not just that those guys are right, that you may actually lose if you don't back those guys. My point is, this year in 2020, you had the opportunity for two things. You got to see, A, that the Democratic Party as a whole is entirely against your interests in regards to the items that Sanders wants. On top of that, you got to see that they were willing to tank it to Trump if it meant stopping Sanders. Meaning each and every one of the Democrats that was on that stage was perfectly willing to say, yes, if this went to a brokered convention, we will try to rip it from Sanders' hands. Each and every one of them knows that there is no lefty that would have allowed that to take place. I don't give a shit if it was Trump himself. He could be Satan himself to say, I am going to burn this country to the ground. And they would still say, yeah, fuck that party. After that, all of those Democrats knew that. All of those Democrats still said we would rip it from Sanders' hands. Meaning, for them, as a group, the party that used to have those anti-Sanders meetings and everything else, they fully understood that we are going to stop him no matter what. Obama started making the phone calls. I would imagine Clinton started making the phone calls. All of the party comes together, and I would give all of these guys get something out of the deal if Biden wins. Clinton, Secretary of State, launched for support of Obama. Look, I guess my point is this. You got to understand the lengths they were willing to go. And Trump winning was one of those lengths, if necessary. Chris Matthews, hey, maybe Trump needs to tank this as opposed to the Democratic Party going to Sanders for a generation. Yeah. That's their perspective of you. Now, Trump doesn't get that. Republicans don't quite get that. But that is true. It's obviously true. On the second front, those lefty organizations won the policy argument. Medicare for all, 88% among Medicare for all, 88% among Democrats, 70% among the public. 72% of the public wants to expand Social Security. 69% want Medicare for all. 67% want $15 minimum wage. 67% want to legalize marijuana. 64% want tax extreme wealth. 64% want to support unions. 63% want a Green New Deal. 58% want to cancel all student debt and free state colleges. That's not Democratic position. Those are lefty positions. You won the policy argument. And poll after poll after poll, as the race was going on, you won the policy argument. Joe Biden won the argument of electability, something that Sanders was never willing to fight on. Not to mention, I got to be honest, this looked less like a primary from the standpoint of Sanders, and more, I don't know what this was. I mean, I can even fold into the argument at this point that Sanders didn't try to fight this race in the way that somebody would need to fight this race if these were the things that they were actually advocating for. If you're telling me that you're going to war with the Democratic Party, then go to war with the Democratic Party. If you're saying you want a political revolution, then goddamn it, have something that looks like a political revolution. This was not that. Even though I give Sanders all the credit in the world for bringing these issues even up to the point of being debated and discussed, because it was not something that was even on the table for discussion prior. You won the policy argument. In 2016, you could be forgiven for not entirely understanding whether or not you were popular. In 2008, you could be forgiven for not pushing for Medicare for all when the guy that wins it is a black guy and he's pushing for Obamacare, which in and of itself is a revolution in regards to the way we look at our healthcare system. You could be forgiven year after year after year prior when you didn't necessarily know whether you were popular, when you were told you had nowhere else to go and you went standing in a corner, when you were on the sidelines not understanding how the public was viewing you and your policies. You could be forgiven for that. But in 2020, when you win it on policy argument and your response at the end of the process when Sanders flames out is to just bend the knee, that is a fail to me. Outright failure. And that is a failure from the standpoint of the left. All of those people who are Democrats in the party, all of these people on YouTube and whatnot who are like, yeah, we're for X or for Y, bent the knee. And I'm saying how ludicrous and fucked up that is as a point of view is warped. Utterly warped. If you are winning a policy argument, your response, honestly, should have been, you get our vote when you back our interests. Power concedes nothing without a demand. God damn it, make a demand. You've won the policy argument. And yet, millions of people, tens of millions of people, instead of standing in solidarity saying, no, it's a pandemic. We shouldn't even have to make the argument for Medicare for all. 88% of the people who back you and your party back this particular policy, and the rest of the public, 70%. There is no excuse, ethically, morally, strategically, to not back this. If you and your party is not representing the 88% of Democrats or the 70% of the public, then why should we back you? And in all honest terms, what does it mean when a party has that much support for something and the party still, Senate, House, and Biden, kick rocks? I'm making the point of the paltry ideas that Biden is coming out with. It's insufficient to deal with the issues that are availing this country and of anybody in the political spectrum. It is the left that cares about this stuff. It is the left that won these policy arguments. And yet, it is also the left that is willing to capitulate and accept basically nothing for a candidate that's going to go back to status quo. I find it unacceptable. My point is that strategically, what should have taken place was the people who are on the left, the radicals of the bunch, should have stood out and said, we're done. The left loves strikes. They love the notion power concedes nothing without a demand. They would say that all the time, on social media and in their circles. And yet, when they get into it in real terms, right now, where you have a situation where you win a policy argument and you in the midst of an election, and cowardice, call it what it is, allows you to give up your responsibilities as people of this country. It is a moment for patriots. And I don't mean that from the standpoint of guns and bullets. I mean that from the standpoint of courage. You have a monster on the other end, fair enough. I have no idea what that has to do with Joe Biden and your responsibility to hold him accountable. Each and every one of you should have been making the argument that if you honestly believes that Donald Trump is a monster, if you think he's the end of all things, and look, he will win the House, probably. He will continue to hold the Senate. He will get the presidency. He's going to get, one or two more picks on the Supreme Court. Maybe he is the end of all things. But that just makes it that much more acute. If the Democratic Party is willing to not appropriate policies that will organically bring people to beat a guy who they're calling a monster, then what does that say about the party? This is kind of my point. The arguments that lefties accept, because they've accepted for the last 40 years, is you have nowhere else to go. That the moment that the primary ends, that's it. Even if you're not a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I look at this and say, I am for these policies. I am for these policies because America is for these policies. And what should have happened was millions should have stood up and say, this is what we're for. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Here's our demand. We want 3 policies. And you end up in some situation of some level of a negotiation. Or is the Democratic Party willing to tank it to a man they're calling a monster in order to not appropriate these policies, in order to organically bring the party together to beat Donald Trump? That's the question. If you're in a democracy and it's the responsibility of the candidate to get your vote, then the argument makes itself. Joe Biden is not willing to accept Medicare for all in order to organically bring people to the party so he can beat Donald Trump, a man he's calling a monster? That's shocking. Joe Biden is not willing to accept the 72% of people who wants to expand Social Security, or the 69% of people who want Medicare for all, or the 67% who want 67% want legalized marijuana. He doesn't want to appropriate policies that the American public demands and say that this is what we want. And he is willing to tank it to a monster in order to not appropriate those policies, to be so purist that he's not willing to accept policies that the American public demands. And honestly, any person with a conscience would demand, especially in the context of Medicare for all. That is your argument. That is the argument that should be made, because that is the rational argument to take in a country that calls itself a representative government. But no, for 40 years, you've accepted you have nowhere else to go. And even when you win the policy argument, you still go looking for the back door. Yeah, I kicked the left. And yes, I understand this video went into a weird way, and it's not necessarily the exact video that I wanted to play. God damn it. I got into a conversation with my mom earlier today that led into this notion of lefties love strikes. They're on Twitter now. General strike, general strike. They love this notion of power concedes nothing without them. Rest in power. And I always find it to be nonsensical. It's kind of like when people say Black Lives Matter is black supremacy. And I make the point of no, it's the opposite of that. It's an inferiority complex. It makes the understanding that somebody around you doesn't necessarily see your life with equal value, in which case you have to assert and tell them. The fact that you have to tell them means that you don't believe that they actually know it. It's not black supremacy. It's the opposite of that. serenity now. I'm highly aggravated by this election. In a rational society where the politicians are working in the interest of the public, they try to deal with the material concerns of the public. Our country does not do that. And I find it utterly and entirely bizarre. And the people who have a cosmic responsibility to deal with those concerns, the fact that people are on the streets, the fact that poverty is entrenched, the fact that your government has never basically said, let's have an anti-poverty policy like China has an anti-poverty policy. Those things should burn in you, and I think they do. But I think that for all of these years, lefties didn't know how to articulate it and how to deal with it, and was basically put in a position where they felt marginalized and cowed. You have this other thing with African Americans being in somewhat of an odd, similar box, where they are basically so terrified of the other that it got ingrained that you just automatically vote for X, meaning the Democratic Party, which basically incentivizes the Democratic Party to function without accountability. And yeah, you may have people that don't vote for them, but from the standpoint of what they consider their base and the crewing of people together, they assume that these people are locked into a box. They're the cows that stand there in the rain, and we can kick it, we can beat it, and they would just stand there. There's nothing holding them there. They're completely unchained, but they would stand in the snow and the rain, and they would be there. We would laugh at it, we would call it names, and they would just stand there. That's the left. That's blacks. And at some point, they accepted those positions internally for themselves. And even though the political environment changed, they didn't necessarily know how to accommodate the change. Meaning you were no longer marginalized. You were out in the open where you can make an argument and assert a particular point of view. You did realize at that point that your point of view was popular and that the public agreed with that particular point of view. And even with that affirmation, it wasn't enough to get a shift in point of view. My mom told me, she said, I voted for Clinton in 2016 and she still lost. Her point being, I felt horrible voting for her and she still lost. Like adding injury to indignity. What happens if the Young Turks, if all of these lefty broadcasters, if every last lefty that believed in Medicare for all and everything else in 2016 said, you don't get our support if you don't appropriate our policies? Hillary Clinton could have said, yeah, I agree with you, and I'm going to take Medicare for all. And believe it or not, that might have given her a thrust of wind to win. The same thing is true, by the way, with Joe Biden, with the difference being that Trump is already in office. I'm making the point to you that you have power and leverage when you take a particular position of saying, this is the thing to which we will use to try to compel the political space. And we're not doing it in a dickish way. We're doing it because we're recognizing that America wants this, and this. And that the political instrument has gotten so ossified, so distinct and separated from it that it doesn't pay attention to it. And this is where it stops. That's your point. It's a strike, if you want to call it a strike. It's a demand, if you want to call it a demand. Whatever language you want to call it. It's you and the public accentuating what you want. And you forcing the political space to deal with it. The Democratic Party could say, we don't care. And we are not going to accept the demand from the public. And so we're willing to tank it. And then you have further questions. What does it mean to be in a democracy, or in a party for that matter, when the party doesn't care what a large predominance of itself cares about and is willing to tank it to a man they call a monster in order to not appropriate policies that the public demands? That's my point. That point is flat, fact, right. Now, somebody can take an alternate point of view and say, no, we got to throw ourselves to Joe Biden. You can take that point of view. I'm saying from the standpoint of the left, it makes no sense to take that point of view. And yet, that is the point of view that Sanders, AOC, all of these other lefties, people who call themselves radicals, will take. I don't. It's not a rah-rah Trump. It's an affirmation of democracy, in a way. It's aggravating to me to be in this country as it goes along with this kind of farce and theatrical nonsense, as opposed to dealing with the real politics of it all. And the real politics of it all is we will make you lose. You have no other leverage. You have no other anything else. which is the reason why you're marginalized, which is the reason why blacks always complain, oh, they're taking advantage of me. Yes, they're incentivized to do so. You're going to vote for them? Yes. All right. They're incentivized to do so. It's a rational act. The same thing is true for lefties. Same thing is true for Hispanics. I'm making the point to you that that needs to be broken and that needs to be changed. Until that's changed, nothing fundamentally would take place for the betterment of this country, let alone for you in regards to your influence. What Trump doesn't get is that lefties pretty much hate Democrats. And the feeling is the same. However, from the standpoint of not liking, doesn't all that much matter. If you have something that is terrifying and scaring the shit out of them, then cowardice alone can compel their behavior. From Trump's standpoint, he doesn't attack his base, even if the base is flagrantly racist. Biden has no issue doing so. Again, because the left are cowards, basically. And they were going to vote for Joe Biden and not hold him accountable, not care about anything Joe Biden is going to say. Joe Biden could get up there and say, yeah, I thought AOC was an asshole. And AOC was still going to vote for Joe Biden. And the left will wring their hands on Twitter and then take those same hands and pull the lever for Joe Biden. I'm saying you're utterly irrelevant from the standpoint of the left, of the Democratic Party. Trump doesn't get that. And because he doesn't get that, he thinks the left is backing Joe Biden for some lie that Joe Biden might have told in the primaries. Take a look at this. Green New Deal.
The Green every
is
building.
not my plan.
I want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, he made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay,
that is
what
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done
said
in this segment.
he called the military
Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape. He said
Mr.
stupid bastards. He
not
said it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that to
Play
the
it.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead,
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President. Answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
The Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my-
You know,
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself.
Stop right there for a second. It makes it sound like Joe Biden is backing the Green New Deal. And I'll give you one more second.
As we move forward, we're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
In one case, burning AOC. I have a video of AOC saying, yeah, I think we can push Biden on this or that. Well, no, you're not. You have nothing to do that with. Here's another part, and this kind of tips, I think, Trump's hand in regards to what Trump is thinking about is why I'm making the point that I don't think he understands why the left support Biden. The left support Biden because for the last 40, 50 years, they believe they have nowhere else to go. They are the battered spouses of the political space, marginalized, irrelevant, continuously voting for a party that doesn't necessarily care about their interests. That's the left. African Americans, same spot. Some Hispanics, same spot. I mean, you have a percentage of Hispanics, I think like a high percentage actually for this year, who are either voting for Trump or are unclear on who they're going to vote for. But the other two groups are caught, captured groups. And until those groups get a different perspective of the world, which is literally all it takes, is it your responsibility to get Joe Biden in office, or is it Joe Biden's responsibility to get your vote? 90% of blacks are going to vote for Joe Biden. That's power. Potentially, anyway. But it's not a potential when they do so out of cowardice. And it's not a holding a political leader accountable. Think of the number of blacks that got caught COVID-19. How many people within the standpoint of percentages, disproportionate number, I would imagine, of African Americans that don't have health care? Or, for that matter, are in dire straits where they can't pay the medical bills off. Would Medicare for all be in the best interest of them? Yes. Would it be in the best interest of people who are at the bottom of the income ladder? 1,000%. Yes. Would it give a pay raise? Largest in a generation? Yes, because those people aren't paying random medical bills and whatnot when those things come up. That would be a path to do those things. Joe Biden is just talking about tweaking Obamacare here or there. You're not going to even get the public option that he was talking about prior. This is kind of what I'm talking about. From the standpoint of policy that would benefit a particular community, meaning the African American community, policy is what matters. If it's Medicare for all, if it's an expansion of Social Security, if it's an increase in the wages, all of those things will dramatically affect the people at the bottom of the income scale. Getting rid of student debt, public university college is free. I don't think people understand the dramatic difference in a society that makes when people are growing up and they can get the education to the degree that they want without having tens of thousands of debt as soon as they're 20 years old. Or for that matter, the elderly being able to have more agency just based on the economic potential that you give them from the standpoint of the expansion of Social Security. Damn sure they deserve it after working and putting all of their muscles and their brains into our society. I'm making the point that changes that we can make in our country, still capitalist country, not that that have changed, but it is a society that recognizes and cares about the members of that particular society. And it's not just doing it accolades, it's doing so through policy. Policy is all that matters. Well, it's not all that matters, but it makes damn sure a difference. If Joe Biden, King of Blacks, Joe Biden, wants to actually do things that are beneficial to that community, he would do so through policies like this that would dramatically, but positively, affect the people at the bottom of the income scale. Joe Biden is not going to do that. He's going to be incrementally less than Trump. And you are going to accept it. Let's play the clip. This is Trump thinking that he caught Biden, and then Trump lets it out what he's thinking. And this is why I say I think his thinking is wrong. And this wrong thinking hurts him in this campaign because, believe it or not, there are things that Trump could do that could try to entice people away from Biden or at the very least undermine Joe Biden's campaign. And the same way that he thinks he's doing that in a debate, he could do that in actuality if he understood the connection between the left and Democrats. Let's listen to this.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the wrong night at
Joe.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely agreed
folks, do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Medicare.
You have any
President.
idea?
Socialized medicine.
You just lost the left. You just lost the left. And the reality of it is, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Do you honestly believe that the left, meaning the people who watch it and pay attention to politics, who really want these things, and when I'm calling the left, I just mean people who, the Medicare for all, want people to have health care, etc. Even taking away the policy, it's this notion of, do I want people to have health care? Yes. Do I think people should be homeless? No. Are you willing to have policy to fix those things? Yes. Should we deal with our environmental issues? Well, yeah, I want to plan it here, so yes. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying the left. I'm talking about it broadly. Trump saying you just lost them fundamentally misunderstands that the reason they are with him is because they are terrified of Trump. And if there were policy issues that they thought Trump might pull on, that would be a way to entice them away from Biden, not just getting Biden to say, yeah, fuck Medicare for all. Yeah, fuck the Green New Deal. Yeah, fuck defund the police. Yeah, fuck the left. I get that the left is demoralized by that. But the demoralized left, broadly, will still go, head down, pull the lever for Biden. This is not a win in the larger sense. This may be a win from the standpoint of you getting your plan accomplished of getting Joe Biden to do that. Something that you just would not do, religiously would not do. But that is not the thing that connects Joe Biden to elements of what we would call the left. Fear and cowardice is. This doesn't work. if you really wanted to get the left, if you really wanted to create some level of space and separation in regards to what the public thinks or regards you, you would have to change in regards to policy. I mean, COVID-19, Medicare for all with COVID-19. That's to the left of Biden. I'm just telling you, the policies that you can take, that you can basically get your party to back just because they want to win and keep that power. And everything else at this point should be subordinate. Medicare for all with COVID-19, you should be pushing that a while ago. I mean, even from the standpoint of going with this no business stuff, people wearing masks would have gotten rid of this long before and getting the economy up and running faster. You didn't want to do that. And now you're stuck in this kind of box where you need to do something in order to get the public to not think about the 200,000 dead people or the 30 million people that are out of a job. Your job at this point should have been, how do I get as many people as possible to believe that I am doing something that is in the best interest of the country in regards to COVID, in regards to employment? And this debate didn't do that. I don't know what you're going to do in the next two debates. But what I would suggest to you is that you go after Biden, not to get him to take a wedge from the left, but to basically undermine and to get across not just your policies, but to accentuate the problems in Joe Biden's past, meaning the lying about civil rights, you tried to do this in this kind of ham-fisted way. But on issues of foreign policy, you're to the left of Joe Biden. That should have been accentuated. On issues of trade, you're to the left of Joe Biden. That should have been accentuated. On the issues of, bringing jobs back, you need to come up with some kind of plan that can actually do that, because Joe Biden doesn't have one. I'm making the point that you could have gone after Joe Biden in the areas to which you are to the left of Joe Biden, not with this nonsense of getting Joe Biden to basically bash the left. That's not going to do it. But going after him and kind of elucidating those things could demoralize enough people where those people just say, okay, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. But the left already knew about this stuff. That doesn't work. So I'll end this here. This video has gone monstrously too long. But if Trump wants to make inroads, this ain't the way to do it. I understand that a lot of right-wingers honestly believe that these guys are connected because of this belief that Biden is going to do this stuff. But the reality of it is, it's not so. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Warren Detainment. Jamal, you coaching Trump. I'm not coaching Trump. What I do want is for Trump to be at least seen as competitive, because otherwise the left has no leverage at all in trying to get what they want in regards to policy concessions. The way this has been going, it's just fear. You don't really need to coach Trump. Trump is a thing unto himself. And at the end of the day, Trump looks like he's trying to lose, or is going to lose. Or at the very least have some kind of weird election that takes place where there's just a fight for who's in charge. I don't have a dog in this fight. I look at this in the standpoint of strategy, politics, and that type of stuff. And that's how I see it. Coaching Trump, no. But pointing out that his understanding of the left is faulty. Yeah, I am. And that faulty understanding means that even though he might have accomplished his objectives in the debate, in the grand scheme of things, nothing has fundamentally changed in the way this race went. In fact, the debate seemed like an afterthought in comparison to other debates, only because it was accepted, internalized, people were horrified by it, and they just moved on. He didn't get his objectives accomplished, even though he might have won specifically in getting his objectives accomplished in the debate. If he wants to sever the left from Joe Biden, he needs to come up with something a little bit more than what the left already knew about Joe Biden. So, like, share, and subscribe. Aisha, please tell Jamal about Working Stiff USA. I am a Working Stiff USA. What do you think I do at 6 in the morning to 10 in the morning? I have to drag my ass out of bed just like you guys have to drag your ass out of bed. So, and I had the fortune to be able to work during the pandemic. And so, I have it's weird to say, but there's a weird guilt about that. But the word guilt doesn't entirely make sense because you don't want to be on the other end of that where you're not working during the pandemic. So it's a bizarre thing. But no, working stuff, yeah, get up every morning. All right, guys, I'm going to end this here. Like, share, and of course, subscribe. Thanks all.